Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here because today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating narrative. Honestly, you can think of this as the ultimate hero's journey, but instead of a knight in shining armor, our hero today is a business. We're going to trace its entire life cycle, starting from just a tiny spark of an idea in someone's head, all the way to its potential evolution into a massive, globe-spanning corporation. We'll be looking at the hurdles it's going to face, the tools it absolutely needs to survive, and the critical, make-or-break choices that determine whether it thrives or dies. Let's get into it.
To guide us on this journey, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to kick things off with the visionary behind it all, the enterprising entrepreneur. Next, we'll map out the blueprint for success, and then explore exactly why society offers government support for startups. After that, we'll figure out how we actually go about measuring business size before jumping into strategies for business growth. Finally, we'll cap the whole thing off by analyzing the ultimate verdict, why businesses succeed or fail. It is a packed journey, so let's get moving.
All right, Section 1, the enterprising entrepreneur. Every great corporate empire started with a single individual, or maybe a small group, who just dared to try something totally new.
So what actually makes someone an entrepreneur? Well, it's a person who doesn't just have a cool idea, but actually takes the personal and financial risk to make it a reality. They are literally the essential glue in our economy. They take all the raw factors of production, the land to build on, the labor to do the work, and the capital, meaning the money and the machinery, and they combine them into a living, breathing venture. Without the entrepreneur willing to step up and absorb that initial startup risk, all those valuable resources would just sit there, totally idle.
Now, obviously, not just anyone can pull this off. Successful entrepreneurs tend to share some very specific traits. They've got to be incredibly hardworking and optimistic. They're the ones seeing the glass as half full when things inevitably get tough. They also need to be self-confident, independent, and really effective communicators so they can actually rally a team. But look closely at those innovative and risk-taker traits. Those are absolutely vital. Remember the story of Nokia? They were once the undisputed king of the mobile phone market, but they failed to innovate. They stopped taking those calculated risks to adapt to new systems, and they crashed. If you lack these traits, the market will simply leave you behind.
Moving right along to Section 2, Blueprint for Success. So let's say you've got the traits, you have the drive, and you are ready to take on the world. But how do you get the financial backing to actually start?
Well, you can't exactly just walk into a bank with a big smile and a good idea. You need a business plan. This is a formal written document that acts as your venture's ultimate blueprint. It details exactly what your objectives are, the strategies you're going to use to hit them, who exactly you're selling to, and, crucially, your financial forecasts. This document is a massive deal because it actively reduces the perceived risk for banks and investors. It proves to them that you know exactly what you're doing with their money.
There are 5 key elements that make up this blueprint. You got to have a clear summary and objectives. You have to detail your physical resources and your human resources, your staff basically. You must prove you've done the real market research and have a solid marketing strategy. You need to map out your daily operations and finally lay out your finance and cash flow. If you've ever watched shows like Shark Tank, you know this is exactly what the investors are demanding to know. They are mentally checking off every single one of these boxes before they even think about handing over their cash.
Which brings us to Section 3, Government Support for Startups. Let's shift our perspective outward for a second here. Our entrepreneur is grinding away, building this business. But why does society, and specifically the government, actively cheer on and support these new startups?
Honestly, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Governments help startups because startups solve massive national problems. More businesses naturally mean more jobs, which drops national unemployment. It drives up competition, which means better prices and way better choices for us, the consumers. It boosts the country's overall GDP and generates crucial corporate and income tax revenue. Plus, governments heavily support what we call social enterprises. These are businesses that prioritize helping society over just making a profit. Think organizations providing free food or running free ambulances. So by supporting startups, the government is essentially building a stronger, wealthier, and far more supportive society.
Okay, Section 4, Measuring Business Size. Let's assume our business has successfully launched, they've survived the startup phase, and now they're scaling. But how do we actually know if a business is successfully getting bigger?
Well, measuring a business isn't quite as simple as it sounds. You could just count the number of employees, right? But wait, think about Walmart. They have massive amounts of labor, so they look huge. But what about an offshore oil extraction rig? They use massive, wildly expensive machinery, but have very few actual workers on site. So if you measure purely by employees, that massive oil rig suddenly looks tiny. Now, if you measure by capital employed, meaning the money and machinery invested, the oil rig looks huge, but Walmart might actually look smaller by comparison. And looking purely at sales can be a trap too, depending on whether you sell high volumes of cheap goods or low volumes of ultra-luxury items. The big takeaway? You must always compare businesses within the exact same industry to get an accurate measure of their size.
Moving into Section 5, Strategies for Business Growth. All right, the business is undeniably growing. Now it's time to look under the hood at the actual mechanics of scaling up. How exactly does a company go from a local success story to a national or even global powerhouse?
Broadly speaking, you've got two main playbooks here. First up is internal growth. This is your safe, steady pace. You open a new branch, maybe launch a new product line, or expand into a neighboring city using your own profits or a standard bank loan. It's slower, sure, but it's much easier to manage. On the flip side, you have external growth. This is the aggressive, lightning-fast strategy. You don't bother building a new branch, you just buy out your competitor entirely through a takeover, or you merge with them. It is incredibly fast, but as you might guess, it's vastly more expensive and carries a huge amount of risk.
Now, when companies merge or take over another, we call that integration. And this breaks down into two brilliant concepts. Horizontal integration is when you join forces with someone doing exactly what you do. Think of a car manufacturer merging with another car manufacturer. They're in the same industry, right at the same stage of production. Vertical integration, though, is a bit different. It's the same industry, but a totally different stage. Imagine that same car manufacturer taking over a car retailer. They aren't making more cars, they're securing the actual shop that sells them.
Let's see how this builds into the broader supply chain. Virtually every product goes through these three basic stages. Primary is extracting the raw materials from the earth. Secondary is manufacturing those materials into usable goods. And tertiary is the retail stage, actually selling that finished good to the consumer. So if our secondary manufacturer buys the tertiary retailer, they're moving forward toward the customer. We call that forward vertical integration. But if that same manufacturer buys the primary raw materials supplier, they're moving backward down the chain. That's backward vertical integration. Ultimately, it's all about gaining total top-to-bottom control over your supply line.
But hey, let's pause for a second. Is getting bigger always better? Not necessarily. Massive growth comes with some serious consequences. On the pro side, you get economies of scale. Because you're huge, you get massive bulk buying discounts from your suppliers, which lowers your costs. You also gain a dominating market share. But on the con side, you risk diseconomies of scale. The business can literally become too big to manage. Communication starts breaking down, managers lose track of what the frontline workers are actually doing, and if you've grown through a merger, you very often face severe culture clashes between the two formerly separate teams. It can be a real mess.
And that brings us to Section 6, Why Businesses Succeed or Fail. This is the climax of our business lifecycle journey today. After all the planning, the growing, and the integrating, we face the final outcome. Why do some businesses ultimately conquer the market while others just completely collapse?
Before we declare the ultimate winners and losers, I want to throw a counterintuitive question at you. If scaling up brings all those economies of scale and massive market influence, why do some highly profitable businesses purposefully choose to just remain small?
The answer? Well, a small volume absolutely does not equal failure. A lot of businesses stay small to perfectly serve a highly specialized niche market. Think about Rolls-Royce. They do not mass-produce vehicles like standard car makers. Their sale volume is tiny in comparison, but their monetary value per car is astronomically high. They cater to a very specific, high-end niche. Plus, some owners purposefully avoid expansion simply because they want to personally manage their customers and avoid the extreme stress and the potential loss of control that inevitably comes with massive external growth.
So the crucial point here is that success isn't just about size, it's entirely about execution. There are definitive factors that separate the winners from the losers. Winners continuously innovate, they have strong leadership, they cultivate a rock-solid brand image, and most importantly, they create unique products that people actually want. Conversely, the losers suffer from poor, inexperienced management, inadequate financing, high costs, and ultimately, unprofitable products. Let's be real. You could own the biggest, most advanced factories in the world, but if there's no market demand for what you're making, your business will fail, period.
And that wraps up our business journey for today. We've seen exactly what it takes to start, plan, and grow a venture, and we've faced the harsh realities of the open market. So I'm going to leave you with this thought to reflect on. When you look at your own ideas, or even your own career trajectory, are you ready to be the entrepreneur who takes the calculated risk and innovates? Or will you play it entirely safe, refuse to adapt, and risk becoming the next Nokia? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and I'll see you all next time.